You want to talk about fear of failure? A lot of people are afraid of success. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, millions of people going through the same thing or some of the same things you are. You're not alone. And there are people out there that can help you. When you get to that point where you're not doing it and you're staring at this information and you're not doing it, that's when you need a coach. First of all, we all want to be heard. And we all want to be seen. And for some people, that hasn't happened for them their whole life.
Hi, and welcome to the Key Concepts podcast. I often hear people saying that they're stuck. That's why I'm excited about my special guest today, Hooman Ghazanfari, the CEO and founder of Ghaz Coaching and the Sacramento Life Coach Institute. Hooman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Corey. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hooman, for people that are listening and aren't familiar with Ghaz Coaching, could you describe what you do and the type of people that you serve?
So what I do is I make meaningful and impactful changes in people's lives through the professional coaching. The type of people I work with typically are people who have had some sort of a background that has had a traumatic experience. Oftentimes it's from our childhood. We've had difficult experiences where, let's just say we had a parent who berated us, or, people who are either verbally abusive or emotionally abusive. And a lot of times those sorts of experiences leave an impression with us, which makes us think that, for example, we're stupid, we aren't going to amount to anything, and we end up becoming our own worst critic, our harsh inner critic, and really beating ourselves up when things don't go our way. And so those are typically the people who come forward and ask me for help. And I provide them a space to open up and be vulnerable and talk about some of the stuff that they're struggling with. And we unpack it all, and I help them understand where they're stuck. I help them understand through the conversation and through the way that they bring forward their thoughts. I will listen for those thoughts through what they're saying and help them process what they need to do to overcome those self-limiting beliefs. For example, if someone says, I don't think I can do this. If it's a particular goal that they have, even like sometimes it's more subtle, like anxiety, like I have a lot of anxiety at work. We will unpack that, and I will help them understand where that is coming from, the source of that anxiety. It's through having that deep, meaningful conversation and the deep dive that we get down to the root cause of what they're struggling with. And then we come up with a plan. And then there's the 4 A's. I know that you went on my website, so you know about the 4 A's. So we want to have that awareness, and then be able to analyze it and look at where that person's stuck and where some of that stuff comes from. And then that takes us right into developing an action plan. It's like, so what do you want to do with this? And so once we develop that action plan, then we work through the action plan, and they report back from one session to the next. And, hey, look, I heard what you said last session about my boss is a lot like my dad. And then so I went and applied that, and tried to show up in a different way and realize that I'm safe. And look, this is work, and I don't need to engage with this person on any kind of a personal level. I can be more professional. And through that self-awareness and showing up in a different way, then they were able to make changes in real time. And so when they come back, then we go into the achievement step, which is that we celebrate those accomplishments. Like when you come back and say, hey, I felt differently at work this week, and I had a professional conversation with my boss and went really well. She or he complimented me on it, and I feel great. We celebrate that. I'll say, hey, great job, way to go. Proud of you, Corey. And then we want to look at what you want to do next. So we don't just celebrate that and, I hand you a certificate and then we call it a day. We want to, let's say, what else do you want to work on? What's next on your agenda? Like your sort of punch list of things that you want to work on that's going to make you a better employee, better person, husband, father, what have you.
Yeah, it sounds like you touch multiple angles then. You do some of the career growth. It sounds like you do the personal growth and some life balance, essentially, in those, I guess, 3 themes, I would say.
Yeah, they're all sort of linked together to the person, right? The sense of self. And who you are manifests itself in the way you show up in all these different areas of your life. So when we're looking at all these different, like I always say, like all those roads lead back to you, right? So when we can work on that, if there's any sort of an internal conflict, when we can resolve that conflict, when we can resolve some of the, maybe even the ruminating that might be going on, or the frustration you're having with some aspect of your life, when we can find that inner peace for the individual, then inevitably, I guarantee you, inevitably, you're going to show up differently in all these different areas of your life. You're going to experience things differently. People are going to experience you differently. And just having that newfound perspective on the context of some of the stuff that you're going through is going to help you be able to move through it, frankly, with more grace. Like where you can, like, okay, I'm not going to, to use someone else's book title, I'm not going to sweat the small stuff. And I'm going to show up in a way that really represents my brand well and helps position me as someone that is, for example, promotable. People are going to enjoy spending time with. And it's going to help me to uncover some of the things that I want to do differently, and so that I can have a better outcome and better results in different areas of my life.
Yeah, I think that's great because oftentimes people say, leave your problems at home. Don't bring your problems into work, or don't bring your work problems home. But honestly, I think that's a myth. If I'm angry at home, I'm angry at work. If I'm happy at home, I'm happy at work. So if you could identify what that whole holistic approach is to making that person have better self-awareness, a better mood, that's going to translate to the other areas of their life, because I struggle with turning my emotions off when I step into the workplace and when I come back, when I step at home. So if I'm at equilibrium, then I'm showing up consistently in all areas of my life.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. That allows me to go right into one of the exercises that I do with clients. And that is that I encourage them to spend a few minutes in the parking lot, maybe even in your car, and just meditate and just sort of just sit with your breathing and focus on the breath and process those thoughts and emotions that are coming up. For example, you may have left the household that was chaotic, and some that might remind you of the way you were raised. Some of it might just be, look, it was just a very stressful day at home. I'm coming into work now. You may even have a relative that has an illness, and it's like, look, I just want to take a few breaths and just come back to the present moment and realize that stuff is running. And it's not to invalidate any of it. Like, look, it's some of those are very difficult situations to have to deal with. But can I come back to being grounded in this moment right now so that when I go into work, I can show up in a different way? I would invite you to do that same exercise before you go home. Like if you had a lousy day at work, boss is screaming at you, you turned in your work late, whatever is going on. Maybe it was just a hectic day, a lot of running around. You don't want to bring that stuff home either, right? So the same exercise would apply when you pull into the driveway or into the garage. Just take a couple of minutes, put the phone away, take a few deep breaths, and just slow everything down and find yourself a nice landing spot before you go into the house. And that way, you're ready to engage with your spouse, ready to engage with your kids, your dogs, and you can just show up in a different way so that you're not carrying in all that negative energy that you may have had from your day at work.
Yeah, that's a good way to kind of reset. Do a little bit of meditation before you transition from work to home, home to work, or from this to that, to kind of just ask yourself, how are you doing? How are you doing? Meditate a little bit. That's a great tip. For coaching in general, did you have to get any like degrees or certifications to do this type of work?
The short answer is that anyone can hang a shingle and say they're a coach. But there is a certain technique, there is a process that if you're following it, you can be a lot more effective as a coach. My background, just for your audience, personal development and self-improvement has been a lifelong journey for me. I did not grow up with the best childhood, so there's a lot of things I had to figure out along the way. And a lot of it was through therapy and just sometimes learning things the hard way and like bumping into things, in the dark, so to speak. and not knowing the mistakes I was making until later, which helped me develop that self-awareness that helps inform me as a coach. With that being said, when I decided I wanted to be a coach, I also went and got some initial training with one of the local programs that raises your awareness of coaching, which is essentially what I do with the Sacramento Life Coach Institute. Like, I don't certify anybody as an international coach, over a few days, but I give them the experience of learning about how to become a coach. And I give them great skills they can use even in their present job, whether they're a supervisor or they want to become a coach or they're a team leader, to be able to listen and ask open-ended questions and be present in the moment so that they can understand where the person's stuck before they start to come up with a plan to help them or to help them see how to do things differently. With all that being said, I do have a master's in executive coaching and consulting from Concordia University of Irvine. And I am an ICF certified coach. And ICF is the International Coaching Federation. It's the closest thing we have in the coaching industry to a governing body. There's lots of coaches that are part of that program that helped us raise the standards of the industry so that that when you get an ICF certified coach, you're getting someone that has been through a process. We had to track our hours and demonstrate competence as a coach. And I've seen the difference, working alongside other coaches or even hearing how some people coach people. You really want to leave a lot of room for the client to do the talking. And there's the acronym that someone taught me a while back. It's WAIT. And the acronym stands for, why am I talking? If I'm the coach and I'm doing most of the talking, it's going to sound to me a lot like advice giving, right? Like, if you're coming in, there's something you're struggling with, and I just start rattling a bunch of stuff off and handing you pamphlets and all this other nonsense. That to me is not really coaching. Like, pure coaching is where you bring something in, I'm on your agenda, you bring in what you want to work on, and we unpack it and we understand it at a deep level in great detail. Like, not just a surfacey level. Like, for example, yeah, you know what, coach, I'm showing up to work late a lot. Like, on the surface, like, most people would say, oh, I know how to coach them on this. Well, just set your alarm 15 minutes sooner and you'll be fine. You'll show up to work. But there's an underlying reason why this person's showing up to work late. As an example, could be that they're self-sabotaging, could be they hate their job, it could be they were told they're never going to amount to anything. There's all kinds of different reasons why people exhibit behaviors. And that's why we need to understand all this stuff at such a deeper level. Like, if you just look at things on the surface, now I'm just giving advice. I'm telling you what you can do to I call it like dime store coaching. Like, I'm just throwing stuff out there for you to try, as opposed to understanding really on a deeper level where you're stuck. And it's not even about me understanding it. It's me helping you unpack it so that you understand it. And you hear yourself say things like, I'm sabotaging myself by doing this. I'm not ready for a promotion, or I'm afraid of success. You want to talk about fear of failure? A lot of people are afraid of success. Like, what's that going to look like? Like, yeah, I like sitting back and throwing darts at the manager. Now, they made me a manager. What's that going to look like? I'm not ready for this. I'm insecure. I've got problems, and I don't want all this stuff to be exposed. Who I am to be out there. Now I'm in the spotlight, and so all these things are ways in which we can sabotage ourselves. We help unpack that so that they understand where they're getting stuck.
Man, if I could just highlight one of those things that you said, is those managers that are scared of success. They make the worst managers. I've worked with some of the most insecure managers in my lifetime, and it trickles down, and it's so easy to pick up on, and it's very demoralizing for the team. So being able to, like, hopefully people are taking the leadership skills and or booking coaches in the workplace as well, so they can overcome some of those challenges. But you alluded to this a little bit. There's an aspect of coaching, and then there's an aspect of therapy. So what's the difference from coaching and therapy?
Therapy involves delving into the past for healing. And just a quick plug, my wife's a therapist, Jenna Ghazanfari, LMFT. Sorry. Shameless plug. Love you, Jenna. So my wife does therapy. I do coaching. So when you're working with a therapist, you're working on healing, and there's different techniques that they use to draw things out and help the person heal. Oftentimes when people are looking for a coach, it's because they've tried therapy and it didn't work, and they're still at a level of frustration, and they reach out and they want to hire a coach to see if, well, maybe they just need someone to be more direct with them and tell them to try things differently. But with coaching, we're more focused on the present and the future, and setting goals and then understanding what some of the obstacles are to those goals. So we really come at it from different angles. And I'll say this too, and this is consistent with our industry standards, that if I identify someone that needs therapy, then I will refer them to therapy. And some common examples include, for example, someone who's suicidal, or someone who is experiencing signs and symptoms of depression, like severe anxiety. Those are symptoms of an underlying problem that needs to be addressed by a therapist. And so it's not my lane as a coach to try and work on that. And so I'm happy to make that referral. With that being said, I've worked with numerous people to help them overcome some of those difficult circumstances in their life and help them live a better life.
I guess if someone needs the healing, there's a aspect for that.
Yeah.
But if someone wants I guess more of the outward success, the self-improvement, the coaching may tackle more of that next level of growth versus the next level of healing. I do see that they complement each other really well, though. I mean, the healing could definitely lead to growth and vice versa. One
of my clients actually referred to it as Team Ghaz recently, because I've referred people to my wife. She does some amazing work with people. She works with people with like ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, which is like with psychedelics and stuff. And so that can be very impactful work and really help people understand things on a much deeper level than even traditional counseling and therapy. So oftentimes I'll make those referrals to her, and then she helps them do that deeper, impactful work and healing. And then they come back to me, and then we work on integration and then pick up the process where we left off as far as continuing the coaching. So once we have done the healing with the emotional side of things, oftentimes those blocks are removed. And so now I'm not experiencing myself the way I was before, where I had this harsh inner critic, this negative self-talk. All that stuff has been flushed, so to speak. It's been cast aside, and I'm able to show up in a different way. And I've seen tremendous results with my clients from having done that kind of work. And my wife does tremendous work in that area.
No, that's awesome. And you also do like one-on-one coaching and team coaching? So
I do.
Is this for more of the workplace versus the individual, or how do they differ?
With the workplace stuff, I can do individual or team coaching with, and then I also have people who reach out to me in private for one-on-one coaching. With the team coaching, oftentimes it has to do with like team dynamics. So, you may have people who are grandstanding at work, or there might be a ringleader, people who really come from a background of chaos and dysfunction in their own lives, right? Like they were raised in a dysfunctional family. And so that informs them that that's the best way to go through life, is to create dysfunction. So they're going to show up in your workplace, and they're the people who come in every day and they're seeking drama. They're looking for something to have a disagreement about, or they might even be raising a coalition against you behind your back. So it's good to be aware of that. Good to be aware. We typically label them as like troublemakers, and that sort of thing. But frankly, they have their own wounds, right? So it's being able to understand those dynamics, and then even understand that people like this exist in the workplace. And we want to try and help them individually if we can. But if we can't, then we want to be able to call that out as part of the team to say that, like, look, we're not going to operate this way anymore. We want to understand where that's coming from and what the sources are. But then once we understand that, then we want to come up with a plan going forward, where a lot of times, Corey, you want to trace this back to the leadership position. Because when these things fester and they linger and they hang around, it's typically because whoever's at the helm in the leadership position has their own issues with chaos, and they allow it, right? Like when we can, and I'll just be honest with you, when you're in a leadership position / manager in an organization or supervisor, you really are like a parent. Like you're running the show as sort of like this parental figure of the organization / team. And people will see you that way. Employees will see you that way. Like you may be like a father figure to them, or like someone might be a maternal figure to them. And so if they have some sort of an issue with their dad, you're going to be that paternal figure that they're going to sort of duke it out with over this particular issue. So it's good to be mindful of that we want to create a safe space for people to work. So we're not showing up and yelling at people and triggering them, but also be aware of people who are trying to elicit that sort of a reaction from you. They're trying to irritate you and get under your skin so that they get that reaction, which is their reward, right? Like we all have a reward system, and it's not always positive. Sometimes it's negative. Like I'd rather be yelled at today because that's what I'm used to. That's my comfort zone is having someone yell at me or having chaos. And then they will elicit that reaction from people in the workplace.
Wow, that's crazy. I never even realized that people could have a reward response like that. That's fascinating, to say the least. But going back to your coaching style, you do something called the coactive coaching style. So can you give me an overview of what that is and what that looks like?
Yeah, I'd love to. So when we look at pure coaching, it's very hands-off and like strictly client-oriented. Excuse me. So like I'll sit back and everything you say, I will put it back on you. Like I'll say, well, like if you say, well, I'm showing up late to work. And it's like, well, what do you want to do with this, Corey? Well, I want to come up with, and so everything is getting pushed back onto the client. And I don't offer anything as far as like my opinion or any ideas, or like we don't collaborate at all on the solution. It's all purely coming from the client. When you do coactive coaching, like we come to an understanding about what those issues are, and then we lay out these solutions, possible options, I should say, on the table. And then, so, you might have 3 or 4 solutions that you come up with, and there might be 1 or 2 that I can think of that you haven't said yet. And once we've exhausted your options, I may put those out there as well so that we can look at all the options that are available. Because you may have a blind spot, right? And if I don't identify what that blind spot is, then I feel like I'd be remiss as a coach if I just lift it up to like, what does Corey want to do, as opposed to, well, here's some other options. So that to me is like a good version of coactive coaching, when you're collaborating with the client and helping them understand some of the options that are available to them that may not have considered yet.
It kind of sounds like you're kind of the compass in that conversation, and you're helping navigate them towards the solutions that they may not have considered. Hopefully the ones that they have considered are actually going to work. And I like how you kind of have them come up with some of the solutions. But why couldn't you just give them the solutions yourself? What's the benefit or the power that comes in with letting that person self-discover?
I love that question. I love that
the issue they're
question.
going through.
Yeah. The reason why I love that question so much is because it speaks to the essence of coaching. Like it's so much more powerful when you hear yourself say something than if someone else tells you. If I tell you you're exhibiting self-sabotaging behavior, you're going to be like, well, that's just his opinion, right? Or if I tell you you should, do X, Y, Z, well, that's coming from me. And then sometimes if you're used to being someone as a parent just telling you what to do as opposed to listening to you, that may even trigger you, may turn you off. So by collaborating and opening up the options, I'm allowing you. I'm not going to say I'm empowering you. I'm allowing you to empower yourself to come up with the best solution. Now, when we talk about the collaboration, if I'm doing coactive coaching, I'm kind of taking a risk, because I might suggest an option that you might not like. You might not like at all. You might be offended by, right? Like I haven't considered that, and here's why. So even then, as a coach, you're taking a risk by putting something out there, because you want the client, especially when they're in that vulnerable state, to look around their life and come up with the answers themselves. But with that being said, there is a certain level of courage you have to take as a coach to call something out or to suggest something, keeping in mind that you're doing it in the best interest of the client. Like, I'm not doing it for me. Like if I was a narcissist, I might say, well, I want Corey to be an executive for the Sacramento Kings someday. That way I can say I did it for him. I helped him build his career and all this other stuff. But that might not be something that you are dreaming of doing. And it's coming from me as the coach. It's my idea. And you're just like, well, if he thinks I should do it, maybe I should do it. As opposed to, I've always wanted to do this. This is coming from me. It's coming from my heart. This is something that's really important to me. It's something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more sustainable when someone comes up with their own idea because it's their idea and everybody loves their ideas. So they're much more likely to stick to them versus falling away and saying, oh, it was not my idea anyways. It gives them, I guess, an excuse not to follow through when it's just told to them.
Yeah. The other classic example I use is like switching careers, right? Like if I'm going to go to another job, I'm frustrated with my current position and I'm looking elsewhere, right? So you bring that in and we unpack it, we're laying it out on the table. Like if I just tell you, look, Corey, I think you should quit. And you're like, okay, well, look, coach said I should quit. I'm going to quit. And you go in and quit. You tell your wife, hey, I quit my job today. She'd be like, what? Like, where'd that come from? Well, coach said to do it. And he, he's the expert, so to speak, as opposed to like, you understand that it's not a good fit for you. And even then we want to come up with an action plan where we not only do we realize that, but we want to come up with the plan that we can execute. Now, some of that might be around your finances. Some of it might be around other options. Some of it might be like, look, I want to start my own business. Great. Those are all wonderful ideas. We want to find out which one you identify with the most. And it's really going to be the one that when we ask that question, it's the one that you voice as your thought that like I've had several clients even recently who are like, you know what? Working for other people isn't for me. But see, it's such a powerful statement because I'm the one saying it. It's not like if you were to say to me, you know what? I don't think working for other people's for you. It's not going to land with me the same way as if I say it myself. When I say it myself, it's mine. And I can remember that moment because it was mine. It's not something that someone else told me, which, I get people come in and they're people pleasers, right? And it's like, hey, look, I just want to be friends with you. Just tell me what to do with my life. Not that they want to be friends with me, but like they want to appease people. And so they'll do anything that it takes to appease someone, as opposed to, look, if we were able to remove that like people pleasing mentality and really let you get grounded in who you are, what would you want to do next?
That's funny you say that. I mean, I'm just going to highlight this working for other people is not for me. I know someone very close to me that tells me this like 3 times a day that they don't like working for someone else. So there's a lot of power when people come to their own conclusion on how they want to move forward versus something that's being told to them. When people first reach out to you, is there a common challenge that you typically see that is trying to be addressed?
The 3 that come to mind, first and foremost, are stress, frustration, and anxiety. And all those like manifest themselves in different ways, right? Some of the stress could be around their work. Some of the frustration and anxiety could be around the way they're showing up in even social situations. Some people have a hard time understanding when it's time to retire. So I've had people reach out to me for some elements like that. I've worked with people's kids who are trying to figure out what to do next, whether it's the stress, frustration, anxiety of the parents or the kids themselves, trying to understand what the plan is moving forward. So those are the biggest things. And typically underlying that is some element of like, it's almost like this is what I've been told I'm supposed to do, but like I can't drown that noise out. So I feel like I'm doing it, but I'm only doing it because it's what I've been told to do, as opposed to it's something that they truly know that they want to do themselves. In a classic example, I had a client several years ago. Her dad was literally a drill sergeant. And so if you can imagine, every morning at 6 a.m., she's up, she's doing, I don't know if she's doing push-ups, but she's definitely making her bed and starting her day. And then by 7, dressed, she already had breakfast, ready to go. There's no protesting. So here she is working in this organization, putting in long days, long hours, working 8 hours a week, working her tail off, trying to get ahead, because she was raised in that in an environment with that kind of a cadence where you just go, 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 all the way to the finish line. And then you wake up and do it again the next day. And that was like the mentality. And literally when you grow up in that sort of almost like a flight or flight environment, that gets embedded in you as a part of who you are. And so one of the things that I do is I get people like that through meditation and other exercises to slow their brain down and really come back into the present moment. Like, look, I'm saying this with all seriousness, like your dad's not here anymore, right? Like he may or may not still be alive, but he's not here. Like he's not here right now barking at you to work 80 hours a week. And so part of that too is taking ownership, taking responsibility for your own life. And like, in as much as like we understand where that came from, that my dad embedded this in me as a ritual, as a cadence, that I can take ownership of this from here on moving forward and realize that I need to set better boundaries and show up in a different way, and even let my boss know that, look, I can't stay late. I can't work 60, 80 hours a week. Now, bosses might be hearing this and saying, oh, great, he's going to demotivate my people. I like when they work 80 hours a week. But look, at the end of the day, what that leads to, even for the boss, is what? It leads to burnout for their troops, right? You get people who get burned out, and then you have turnover, and you have people leaving the organization who are highly talented people, but you worked them, to the core, and they're done. They're toast, and they're ready to move on. They want to find something that's going to create a more enjoyable lifestyle for them. So there's a buy-in for the boss as well. But typically, I get that from the employees saying, look, I can't keep this up anymore. And I agree with them. Like, no, you can't sustain that. People who do, it's not healthy. It's not healthy to work, long hours and minimize your sleep. And there's this perception that like, oh, I have to do this to get ahead. Really? Like, okay, I'll leave that one alone because I don't want to get into it too much. But at the same time, you don't necessarily have to work long hours. You do have to work hard, but it's more about efficiency. Like I can take someone and help them sit down and go over their day and figure out where those inefficient moments are, even maybe some inefficient hours, meetings, conversations that just aren't serving them well, and help them get to a place where you're not working those long hours. And if you're being asked to, you can set good boundaries and help the boss understand that, first of all, it's not good for either one of us for me to do this. But, I wasn't hired to work, every day, 12 hours. It's not reasonable. It's not sustainable.
Yeah. And that drill sergeant example is like, if you were taught this way, that translates to the workplace. I guess the saying that comes to my mind is the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. But then that brings me to this question. So I was looking at your website, and you have 25 years as a firefighter as well. So is that what inspired you to get into life coaching, or was it something else?
What inspired me to get into the fire department inspired me to get into coaching, which is the burning desire, pardon the pun, sorry, but it was the burning desire to help people. I've always wanted to make a difference for other people. And the best way I found to do that, and I really at the time I thought was the only way, was through the fire service. But I've also since then become a lot more active in my community. And then with that being said, what has really been rewarding for me as a coach are those aha moments with clients. They give me goosebumps even today. Like when people they're sitting there and they're looking at their lives through a different lens. And it's kind of mind-blowing for them. And I can see it. And so I can see that it's creating the change that they want. And that's part of when we get to that achievement that really, it gives me goosebumps. And that's the reward for me, honestly, are those goosebumps of seeing someone's life shift and seeing it going in a totally different direction. So I've had to transition from doing what I did in the fire department to doing it with people one-on-one or even as part of small teams, but it's been just as rewarding.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds like it's more of that purpose-driven inspiration that kind of led you both into the fire department as well as into life coaching. So let's say someone does reach out to you for the first time. What does that first call look like?
Yeah, so the first call is basically a discovery call. It's a chance for us to get to know one another. First and foremost, it's free. So I'm not charging them just to find out what's going on. It's a chance for me to connect with them and vice versa, for them to get to know me and know that they can trust me with anything. And trust, it's not just the information, but it's known that they can trust me with vulnerability, that they can say anything, they can exhibit any emotion, and that I can hold that space with them, and that I have that capacity to do that. There's no real structure to it. I just want to find out where they're stuck and whether or not I can help them. For example, like we talked about earlier, if I identified that they need a therapist, then during the discovery call, I would say, well, I'm going to make a referral for you because I think therapy would be more applicable here than coaching. With that being said, it's a chance for us to understand what the issues are and then understand how I can help them and what the plan would be moving forward. So I typically do a batch of sessions and I work with people, do a batch of 10 sessions to start with. Oftentimes people renew. Sometimes after 10 sessions, they're like, whoo, I got it, and they're off and running, and that's wonderful. I'll periodically check in with them just to make sure everything's going well. But typically after 10 sessions, people see great results. The people who renew are people who are like, I really like that. I want to continue to do this as an ongoing personal, professional growth opportunity. And they want to make sure that they're sort of fine-tuning as they go through their life. So it's not as though we didn't get results with them. They just like to continue to meet and go over things and keep things moving in a positive direction.
Yeah, sometimes having some accountability and someone to check in with you helps you stay on track. That's for sure. Now, you have this framework on your website. It's called the 4 A's, the awareness, analysis, action plan, and achievement. Is that something that you came up with, or is that something from your certification? And what is it overall? If you could give me another quick overview.
It's one of the things I got from my master's program. And I don't announce during a session that we're moving. Okay, great. Listen, we're done with the analysis. Now we're going into the action plan. So it's a framework that I'm using in my mind to move from one step to the next. So I don't, like I said, I don't announce it to the client that we're doing it, but I want them to understand that there's a flow to it. We have to understand what the issues are. We have to understand the source of those issues. So the awareness piece is like what is it that you're struggling with? And that's typically, we uncover that in that discovery call that I just talked about, that initial phone call. Then we move into analysis, where we do sort of a deeper dive to understand where they're stuck and what some of the issues are on a deeper level that they want to work on. And then that's where that action plan comes from, where we come up with actionable goals and tactics that they want to use throughout the week. Same kind of thing that I would do with teams. Oftentimes with teams, I'll meet with them individually to understand what the issues are and then get them together to come up with an action plan and to work on things that they want to do together. And then the achievement piece, as I said, is that last piece. And then we use that to loop back around to say, congratulations on what you just achieved. Now let's sort of start the process over and tell me what else you want to work on. And all these things happen in real time during a session. And as we're moving from one thing to the next, there's just a flow to it. You'll bring something in, we'll work on it, we'll process it. And then you might have 3 other things on your agenda for the session. Because remember, you're on your agenda. And we may go into some of those areas as well. You might actually come in thinking we're going to talk about one thing. I want to talk about being late to work. And as part of that process, we uncover that there's some deeper underlying issues that you're struggling with and that you want to work on those as well. Or maybe you want to bring those up to the forefront and process them and work on them before anything else. And this is sometimes where, I'll just be honest with you, sometimes I lose people because that level of depth, I'm right there with you. And so if you're looking for that level of depth, I'm your guy. If that makes you uncomfortable and you don't want to be uncomfortable, then you can just, you can hire a coach. We can go in and shoot the breeze and talk about things on a very surfacey level and then, go about your day. But you're not going to see that growth until you unpack and identify those underlying issues. And that, to me, is how you can be impactful in someone's life.
Yeah, if it was easy, then everybody would be able to do it on their own. So you really got to face what the root cause is. So that framework is really good because it kind of is structured. You're not just shooting in the dark. But you mentioned the action plan a few times. So do you see people fall away from the action plan?
It's all part of the process. It's not going to be a straight line. There's going to be some setbacks along the way. There's going to be moments where there's self-doubt and second guessing or, negative self-talk. And that's where the growth happens. So we want to identify that, because otherwise you do it yourself. I mean, I tell people, you can go on ChatGPT and say, hey, come up with a personal development plan for me. And that thing will spit out literally 6 pages of stuff you can do right away, right? So go do it. And if you can't do it, you got to ask yourself, why am I not doing this right now? I've got 6 pages here telling me, if I want to lose weight, I got to do sit-ups and push-ups, and I got to go out and run and all this other stuff. Why am I not doing this stuff? And when you get to that point, whether it's career development, starting your own business, exercise, whatever it is, and you're staring at this information and you're not doing it, that's when you need a coach. Because a very effective coach will help you break through those obstacles and those self-limiting beliefs, those things that tell you that you can't do it.
Yeah, it sounds like people are resistant to change or can be resistant to change, myself included. I know sometimes it's a struggle for me as well. But is there a common thing that causes people to be resistant to change? Is it just fear?
Fear is the most common one, frankly. Even when they've actually reached out for the coaching, I mean, I'll be honest with you, sometimes people will ghost me, and it's not because of me. It's not any vibe that I'm putting out. They're afraid to delve into some of this stuff. Because look, here's the thing. Regardless of what needs to happen for that change to occur, it's going to be painful in some way, right? And so we need to lean into that pain. Some of it's emotional pain. And some of it is, if you're trying to get into shape and trying to do exercise, there's going to be some physical pain as well. So we need to lean into that and understand that that's all part of the process. But it's like, look, the comfort zone is there for a reason. And there's a reason why it's called the comfort zone, right? Like, we're all comfortable there. Everyone else around me can see it, that I need to change. You mentioned earlier the unpleasant boss. Let's just call them that. Like, everyone else can see that person's a jerk, right? But that person's not going to change because A, they're not being told they have to, and B, they're comfortable there, right? Like, they're still getting their paychecks, they still have power. Nothing has made their life uncomfortable where they have to change. Now, the moment they have to change is when there's a mutiny. And then their boss hears about the mutiny and comes to me and says, hey, we need to work with so-and-so because they're making everyone else's life miserable. And then that's when I get that boss to work with. So yeah, fear is the biggest one. It's the fear of change. It's a fear of, like, what do I have to work on? There's some underlying emotional pain that I'm going to have to uncover and realize. But look, you're going to be better off for it on the other side if you're open to, and I know people have all kinds of obstacles to making those changes. Some of it is narcissism, frankly. If I see myself as the center of the universe and I can do no wrong, I'm not going to listen to a coach. I'm not going to listen to a therapist. I'm not going to listen to anybody.
Yeah. So I guess it could be multifaceted. And I think there's a difference from what I'm hearing. There's something that might be short-term motivation, and there's something that's like long-term transformation. And of course, growth is painful, but can you explain the difference? What is that short-term motivation versus that long-term transformation? What do those mean, and how do they operate differently?
Yeah, so the long-term transformation takes time, obviously, right? Especially if you've been in these old habits for a while. Or let's just say you've even developed a reputation at work that lends itself to being a certain personality or a certain character type. That stuff is not going to shift overnight. When it comes to short-term motivation, though, it would be things that are more tangible that people can see on the horizon as something that can happen more quickly. And those oftentimes will be more motivating for people because they can see that it's not going to take as long. And oftentimes we're impatient. But at the same time, some of the greater rewards come from the long-term plan and the change that we see over time.
Yeah, I think long-term transformation does take some effort. The short-term motivation is good to get started, but yeah, you got to just continue working through it to get to the final goal or the transformation that people are looking for. I often hear like also a difference between like IQ versus EQ. And I think I saw a little bit of this on your website around like, the self-awareness, the checking in with yourself. So for those that don't know the difference from like, hey, do I just need to learn something versus do I need to be more self-aware, IQ or EQ? Can you explain the differences of those two terms?
IQ, to me, it has to do more with like your intellect, and it might be like high level decision making in a vacuum, and your ability to sort of process information and understand things on a larger scale or more of a global level. When it comes to EQ, we're talking more about like your emotional intelligence, right? That like, okay, or what kind of an impact do I have in the way that I show up with the people around me, whether it's my family members, my friends, my peers, my direct reports. And that's where that self-awareness piece is so important. And sometimes people have different reasons why they get uncomfortable. Like I've had clients where they're uncomfortable on Zoom. Like they don't like the way that it's not personal, or if there's a moment of silence, they're uncomfortable with the silence. And so they try to fill up that space by cracking jokes or, whatever to try and break it up, or they think that it's their job to make people laugh, but it ends up backfiring on them because it makes it look as though they're being unprofessional. So when we can understand that, then we can sort of be more aware of the fact that we're doing it. And that becomes that higher level of EQ where we're showing up differently, understanding our own tendencies, but then also staying in that moment and understanding the context from a social standpoint in a way that benefits us and the people around us.
So it sounds like, especially in the workplace, that the emotional intelligence is probably what they're focusing on a little bit more. Is that typically what people come to you for?
Yes, that's a good distinction. Is I don't work with people on IQ. I had a client a while back. Well, I won't say what they did, but it was a technical skill, right? So I don't work with them on that technical skill, right? Like if you're looking for technical skills, that's done through your training, through your work. But when you go to perform that technical skill or to speak on that technical skill and you are having a hard time speaking on it from an emotional standpoint, like you're afraid of what people think, you have an anxiety around getting up and talking in front of people or performing in front of other people who are watching, that performing that technical skill, then that's the kind of work that we do so that you can perform better. You have more clarity around your decisions and the way that you show up in your personal and professional life.
Yeah, that's really good. And you mentioned Zoom for a second. So do you also do the coaching virtually or is it all in person?
I do. Yeah, I have. I've done Zooms with people in all around the country. I even have clients locally that prefer Zoom because it's more practical. Like they don't have to jump in the car and come to my office, but I do have an office in Gold River. I've also done Zooms with people overseas as well as clients. And so I prefer in person because the energy in the room can be very effective in helping someone when they're trying to overcome some sort of an obstacle in their life. Zooms are highly effective as well because it's still that human interaction. And for me, it's not just the listening, but the body language, the way that people have, they may have an expression change, or if you seem like looking down or looking away, they're thinking about something, right? So I want to make sure that I capture that thought. And it might even be that they're checking out for a minute, right? Like I might just look away, like I'm just like trying to check out for a second. And even then, I want to find out where they went, right? Like, because there might be some pain there. There might be a self-limiting belief or a thought that we want to make sure that we capture. To answer your question though, yes, I've done Zooms all around the state and all around the country.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to catch someone in their thought is look at the facial tells and see if there's a moment to pause and expand on what where they went. You mentioned also like AI for a little bit, right? People can ask the chatbot for coaching and so on and so forth. But where do you think that some of these AI tools might be helpful, and where do you think they fall short?
I think when it comes to getting the information that you're looking for and maybe even a little bit of accountability, they can be highly effective. Where they fall short is that, like, when they share that information with you, they can't, now they haven't developed to this point yet, they haven't evolved to this point yet, but they can't like read you like we just talked about, right? Like they might say, oh, well, if you want to promote, then you just need to do XYZ. And then you might look at that and you might have a sad expression in your face because you just can't see yourself doing it. And you were told that you're never going to amount to anything. And so that's where having a human being there, they will read that expression and say, hey, what just happened there? Where did you just go? Because we were just talking about this, and all of a sudden your expression changed, and now you look really sullen, and you look like the energy just left you. So where did you just go in that moment? And they can help pick you up and help you understand where you're getting stuck. So will it evolve into something like that later on? I don't know. But at the same time, where it is today is sharing information. You can have a little bit of accountability where if you have an account, it will set reminders for you or tell you to do certain things. But even then, it's that when you have a coach, that person is putting everything back on you. And what you're trying to do with ChatGPT or with any one of these AI devices is find something external that makes you do the things you want to do, as opposed to having that come from within.
Yeah, so it's good for maybe education, but not so much for accountability. And I don't think it can really uncover the root cause and ask the right questions. It's relying on you to be able to do that. But then if you could do that already, you wouldn't need a life coach. You would just discover what you need to overcome, and you would just do it potentially. So there's a lot of limitations to using some of the AI tools because they're not going to redirect the conversation. They're not going to look at the facial cues, the paralanguage, and dive deeper into what really needs to be discussed. And you alluded to it earlier, is like we may start with something, but then as you're discovering that, you may find like 4 or 5 other things that are really predecessors to you addressing that thing. So let's address these first and then get there. And that's I think going with a coach is going to be much more beneficial for that long-term transformation.
That's actually a great point that oftentimes my next question is based on your last answer. So, because I want to find out more about what you just said. Like you might say, well, I'm not good enough, or I don't see that happening for me. And so that could take us into a deep dive where we're talking about something on a much deeper level so that you understand it better. And you understand when you're making statements like that, where that comes from historically. I'm in that room with that person and understanding the flow and the energy that exists, and then utilizing that to draw out the information that we need to help them grow. And I don't see right now a way in which ChatGPT or AI is able to do that for someone. They're just there to sort of help support you. And they might even have information about stress and anxiety and how to overcome it and all that stuff. But they're not there with you to understand exactly where you're stuck.
Yeah, yeah. They're not personalizing it in such a way to tailor to you. They're giving the generic response that they just are regurgitating from the textbooks. Yeah. Between the people that you've coached and you've helped, do you have any like testimony that stands out, like someone who really transformed their life that you can share without getting into anything confidential?
I've had several people tell me that I saved their life.
Oh.
So, for someone who comes from the fire department to be in a business like this or a role like this, and people tell you that, it's a profound statement, and not one that I take lightly either. That's been a very powerful one, hearing that from someone, and it means a lot. There's other ones where when I hear someone say, like I've never heard myself say that before. Like I never knew that about myself. And just to know that what I've done with that person has made such an impact on their life and made such a difference is so rewarding. In as much as like I charge for my services, that it pales in comparison to the reward that I get for the work that I do with people and the difference that it makes. And look, it's not me. It's not about me. I'm following a process that I'm confident is going to help people. And they're the ones who come in and do the work. And they're the ones who see the results. So it's not about me. Like I don't have any, like awards on my shelf at home for being coach of the year or whatever. I don't even know if that exists, by the way. But it's not about me. It's about them. I'm here for them. I'm here to make a difference for them so that they go home and they're happy with their lives. They feel satisfied and they're thriving and they're enjoying life. And look, if they want to write a testimonial and say, hey, this guy is great, wonderful, I appreciate it. I always bring it back to like, look, first of all, you're the one who reached out for the help, right? Like I'm not going door to door to do this. You reached out for the help. You came in, you rolled up your sleeves, you did the work. You're the one who unpacked all this, all the emotions in your life, all the pain, anger, fear, frustration, stress, anxiety. That all came from you. And you're the one who saw the results. So it's not about me, not about me in any way. This is all for you. And by the way, you're the one who asked for it and you got what you wanted.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, it makes me kind of step back and realize like people might be going through a lot more than what meets the eye. And for someone to be like, wow, you saved my life, that's heavy. That's heavy. So I'm glad that people are seeking help and reaching out and doing something instead of just kind of being isolated, especially after COVID. I think we've lost some of that relationship with people and our peers. So anything that kind of helps someone, build that relationship and overcome those thoughts of, suicide pretty much. So.
Here's part of my motivation for reaching out, like even podcasts and stuff, is I know there's people out there suffering. I know because I meet them every day. I meet them in the most unlikely of places. And you start talking to someone, you tell them what you do. And within minutes, a perfect stranger is crying in front of me and telling me about their life and what they're struggling with. So I know they're out there. And by all means, if you're going through something right now, please know that you're not alone, that there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, millions of people going through the same thing or some of the same things you are. You're not alone. And there are people out there that can help you.
Yeah, definitely. You're not alone. And there are people that are out there that can help you. Now, to pivot for a second, you also do, trying to transition from a heavy topic to something that's a little more lighthearted.
Sure.
So, Transformation Day. Can you tell me about what that is and what occurs and what that's all about?
Yeah, so Transformation Day is going to be a fun workshop. We have one coming up on March 28th at the Marriott Rancho Cordova, California, USA. And so it's going to be a fun day where it's going to be a workshop. And we're going to kind of go through the basic tenets of coaching, but also help people on a deeper level understand where they're stuck. And some of it will be surrounding goal setting, self-awareness, and doing exercises in groups where we share about ourselves and learn from other people, like what their perception is, and also share our perceptions with others. And so I'll be the one facilitating the workshop and doing fair amount of sharing of information. But I want people to understand that it's going to be a personal growth day, that it's going to help you to understand yourself better and to get the skills you need to live a better life. So it won't be like a 6-hour speech from me. I don't want to talk that long, and no one wants to hear me talk that long. So it's going to be more about you and giving you exercises and information that you can use to live a better life and to grow in what you're trying to do.
No, I'm excited about it. Transformation Day, I think, is phenomenal. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to go to your website. I'm going to get plugged in. I'm going to register. I'm
Awesome.
going to try to show up. We talked a lot about you helping others, but along this way, there's probably something that you've learned as well. Is there one thing that stands out or one thing that you've learned from being a life coach?
Oh, there's so many things I've learned from being a life coach. I'll just be perfectly honest with you, Corey. A lot of the growth that's happened for me is because I realized that if I was going to be coaching other people, I needed to lead a healthy and productive life. I needed to model that for other people. Like I couldn't be, a guy who's hungover and disheveled and showing up late to things or what have you. Like I couldn't be that guy. I had to figure out my own stuff. I had to get my act together. And so that really was the transformation for me, was all the, and like for me, life is a continuous learning process. So like there was the initial stuff, which was a lot of it was through therapy and reading books. Started with Think and Grow Rich, and I've gone beyond that to numerous other books. Matter of fact, I have a constant flow of audiobooks that are filling my brain up with information. But it's been about making sure that I have my act together so that I'm modeling good behavior and also understanding through overcoming my own self-limiting beliefs and inner conversation and turmoil that when I can resolve that myself, it just makes me a better coach and a better person. So doing my own internal work and gathering information and being a student of the game of life is something that's a lifelong process for me. And I've been able to utilize that to show up in a different way and utilize the transformation from becoming a firefighter to becoming a coach as a growth opportunity and a way that I can serve others in a better way.
It sounds like there's a few qualities that you mentioned there. So if you had to highlight one quality, what quality do you think makes a good coach?
I think that the best quality for a good coach is to be a good listener. Because until you have the patience to sit with someone and listen and fully understand where they're stuck, what some of the issues are in their life, and I might hear a few things that I want to address, right? You might come in and throw a few easy ones out there, and I might try and jump on those to impress you with my skills as a coach. But I'm really listening for those $100 bill items, the things that are really more deeply rooted, that are creating hardship for you. And so being patient, but more importantly, just being a good listener. Because here's the thing. First of all, we all want to be heard. And we all want to be seen. Right? So, and for some people, that hasn't happened for them their whole life. Their parents didn't pay attention to them. When they're at work, they feel like they're invisible. And so that can be so powerful. And I invite this to your listeners and stuff. If you're a leader, if you're a parent, even if you're not, even if you're one of the people making the widgets, just take the time to get to know people and listen to them and understand what makes them tick. And that can be so powerful in your relationships, and it can be so powerful in your own personal growth and the way you show up as a leader. So for coaches, I would say that that's the integral part of being a coach, is being able to listen to people, because that really is the foundation of communication as well. I can't talk to you and tell you about myself and even have a conversation with you until I can take enough time to listen to you and understand what you're trying to convey to me so that I can respond. And it sounds simple, but you'd be surprised how many people, they don't even, look, as we're all listening to this, we can all think of examples of people that don't listen, right? They just say, you're talking about the sky's blue and they're talking about, their vacation. And you're on completely different pages. And so that can be an integral part of not just being a coach, but being a human being, is listening to others and understanding who they are and where they come from.
Yeah, listening definitely goes a long way, to say the least. If someone's listening right now, to continue that line of thought, and they're on the fence about getting some coaching or reaching out, or maybe they're scared to start uncovering what's underneath the surface, what would you say to them?
Well, I'd start with why do you want to do it? right? There's a reason why you're having that thought. Like, I want to hire a coach. Really? Okay, why? Like, what's in it for you? Right? Like, oh, well, this guy's, he's on TV. Coach Ghaz is on Corey's YouTube channel. I want to meet him. But why? There's got to be something in it for you. And so we all have to understand our own reward system. And, maybe you want to make more money. You want to show up differently at work. Maybe you want to be more successful. Maybe, and ultimately all that stuff leads to like, I just want to live a more fulfilled life and I want to be happy. Right? And then we all want that. What's the gap between getting there and where you are now? When you identify that gap, like that's why you need a coach.
Yeah. If you identify that gap and you're thinking about it already, you're probably ready to make the first step anyways. And that first consultation is free. So they can find out more if it really is worth it for them or not.
Yeah, I'll say this too, and hopefully people are able to glean from this conversation what coaching is. Because the point I was going to make is sometimes people don't know what coaching is, like compared to counseling, compared to therapy, compared to their football coach or their soccer coach. Like, what does it mean when you hire a coach? So hopefully this is a way that helps them understand that coaching is very deeply rooted personal development work. Like, it's not just motivational stuff, right? Like, I'm not like some ex-Navy SEAL that's going to tell you to, get your act together and, wake up every morning and do 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, do a cold plunge. You can do all that stuff, but that's not where I operate. Like, where I operate is what's keeping you from doing the things you want to do. And that's putting the focus back on you. So you can look internally into how you're made up and what you want to change to live a better life or live a different life than you live now.
Yeah, it almost sounds like you help people identify what their identity is, and you help transform their identity so they could sustain a new lifestyle, the lifestyle that they actually want, and you help them pursue it. For someone who wants to reach out, where can they find your website? Where can they find your phone number, email address, social media contacts, and how do they get in touch?
Yeah, so the best way to get a hold of me, if you went to my website, www.ghazcoaching.com, that's GHAZ coaching altogether.com, fill out your name and email address and stuff. I would love to have a conversation with you and find out where you're stuck and so we can work on how I can help you live a better life. And then, you can find me if you look me up under my first and last name, which I'm sure is part of the podcast. And maybe we can put some links in there as well. But I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So, and I post content there probably 3, sometimes 4 times a week, mainly around personal development, self-improvement, self-awareness, all those different topics.
Awesome. We'll get the pop-ups on the screen as well as the description below with all of the references to the social media handles, the website, the email, and so on and so forth. So we do a section where the last guest leaves a question for the next guest. And the question that I have for you is, what is one word or phrase that describes your internal motivation?
I'll say it in one word: kindness.
Kindness.
Yeah. I heard this quote just recently. You can be nice or you can be kind. It's so much easier to be nice, right? Like being nice is just sort of on a very sort of a superficial level, but to be kind to someone takes work. And that's like going out of your way to put effort into whether it's a relationship or to help others. That takes so much more effort than just sort of being nice to someone in passing. So if I was to pick one word, it would be that.
Nice. Be kind. Well, Hooman Ghazanfari, again, the CEO and founder of Ghaz Coaching and the Sacramento Life Coaching Institute. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you for having me, Corey. I really appreciate it. I had such a blast today. Thank you very much.
Well, today's conversation reminded us that growth isn't about fixing yourself. It's about taking a step back and understanding yourself better so you could achieve that transformation. So thank you for watching this episode of the Key Classes Podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.